While we don't see a lot of its products here in the States, Xiaomi is the world's third largest smartphone maker. And while it's become well known among hinge-heads for its large format foldables, now on their fourth generation, the company hasn't dipped its toe into flip phones. Until now. From an American perspective, the Xiaomi Mix Flip has most of the shortcomings you'd expect from both a first-generation product and one built especially for the China market. But at the same time, it's without question the best first pass at a flip phone I've seen. And it gets so much right about the clamshell experience that incumbents like Motorola, and certainly Samsung, might soon have reason to worry. Right at the top, I will say that I expected a little more from the Mix Flip's design. In some ways, Xiaomi is a victim of its own success here. The company's book-type foldables have long been some of the most distinctive and ambitious out there, so when it made the leap to flip phones, I expected something that looked a little less like everything else. I made a similar complaint about Motorola last summer when it gave the Razr its more conservative makeover. In my view, there's no reason a category that's just 5 years old should already be hitting a design plateau. Anyway, the Mix Flip seems like what would happen if you were crossfading the Razr Plus into the Galaxy Flip 6 and you kind of got stuck right in between the two. Pillowy compound curves and pronounced aluminum rails. A friction hinge that can hit most poses asked of it. A crease that's not great, but not terrible. And oversized camera lenses and an overpowered cover display to surround them. I say it's overpowered because the size, resolution, refresh rate, and brightness of this cover screen are all class-leading. And more importantly, a lot of thought went into the software running upon it. Up until now, we've mostly seen flip phones hew to one of two extremes. The Motorola approach of running any app you want on the cover, like it's a tiny phone, or the Samsung philosophy of giving you a library of curated widgets and making you jump through hoops to do any more. Now, Motorola's approach is great until an app needs the space claimed by the cameras, at which point you need to crunch it down into a landscape orientation that the app may or may not like. The Samsung strategy is cleaner and simpler, but forces you to open the phone more often. While Xiaomi threads the needle between the two almost perfectly. Rather than letting apps spill across the whole canvas, Xiaomi keeps them confined to a virtual column on the left side, where they're happy to run in portrait mode, similar to how Oppo's flip phones do things. Now, the Mix Flip has extra space above the cameras, which it puts to use with a totally separate stack of mini widgets. These are very simple cards that give you ambient information like time, weather, fitness, or media controls, and there's even a little task switcher just for the cover screen. Kind of reminds me of the Samsung Continuum, if I've got any fellow olds watching. The remainder of the display that flows between the cameras retains the color of the active app or your wallpaper, giving the canvas a more anchored, unified feel. If you're thinking those lenses will get in the way of typing out here, you're right. But turn the phone upside down and you reclaim the full width of the screen. It's a very clever way to make maximum use of space, and the segmentation is even reflected in some of the lock screen options you get, which are very fun. The result of all this is a cover screen that, even though it's not significantly larger than the Razrs, still feels like the biggest on the market. Now, you know there's a flip side full of disappointments to this, and if you've seen my reviews of China market phones before, you can probably list them along with me. First, for all Xiaomi's flexibility out here, you're still confined to only a handful of whitelisted apps that can actually be made to run. That's not as big a deal in China, where apparently over 200 region-specific apps are supported. But when this phone makes the jump to Europe, I'd argue it needs to enable all apps on the cover screen to stay competitive. I'd also recommend letting users use any keyboard they want on the cover screen, instead of being locked to the system default, turning gestures back on for those who want to use third-party launchers, and figuring out how to avoid the cover screen flipping upside down every time I close it. Then there's the tweaking needed to overcome Xiaomi's extreme battery optimizations, so you can make sure you actually get notifications. You'll need to disable battery saving and enable auto start for every critical messaging app you have. And even then, I still regularly miss alerts on the Mix Flip that my other phones have no trouble delivering. I don't even know why this level of power management is necessary, since the Mix Flip ships with a bigger battery than even the one in the Galaxy Fold series. No, I didn't misspeak. This flip phone has a bigger battery than Samsung's book-type foldable. Now, it is possible that all that power saving really is necessary to counter the draw of the chipset, though. By all accounts, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor at the heart of this phone is a true powerhouse. And SoCs that beastly, crammed into the constraints of a clamshell casing, need equally powerful cooling in order to stay performant. Both GSM Arena and Tech Tablets report that the phone throttles early and often when stressed. Now, if you're like me and you don't do intense mobile gaming, you're not likely to notice that. Unless you're like me in another way, an obsessive shutterbug, always with that cover screen viewfinder turned on. Under those conditions, the Mix Flip turns into a pocket warmer pretty quickly. And sadly, without an IP rating, cooling it off with a sweaty ice pack is probably not advisable. But for every weird disappointment, there's another weird delight. 67-watt charging means it takes less than an hour to go from empty to full, which almost makes up for the lack of wireless charging. This extra hole in the casing houses a third microphone meant to give you clearer calls when closed. One caller said I sounded no different on speakerphone than in handset mode. There's a whole section of the settings dedicated to showcasing the phone's exemplary haptics. And I continue to be a genuine sucker for a Leica sticker. The partnership between Xiaomi and one of the world's oldest camera companies pays huge dividends here. Alongside Leica's authentic or vibrant processing modes, you get 14 color filters, some of which emulate specific film stocks. And on top of that, you get 4 virtual master lenses to achieve different types of portrait. It's the kind of thing you might dismiss as a gimmick, and in the past I might have agreed. But honestly, I'll take this gimmick over yet another AI parlor trick any day. In a world where phone cameras are so mature, even budget models can kick out decent shots. I love the notion of injecting a little opinion, a little attitude into the processing of those photos. And now that the partnership is well into its 3rd year, Leica also apparently gets to weigh in on things like lens selection at the hardware level. Speaking of lenses, I do hate that Xiaomi went the same way Motorola did, swapping out the traditional ultra-wide camera for a 2x telephoto that's useful only if your principal pics are portraits. And I miss the convenience of using a palm gesture to fire the shutter. But I gotta say, for me, the Leica stuff actually makes up for those annoyances. For years, going all the way back to the Nokia Lumia phones, the biggest compliment I've been able to give a phone camera is that it wants me to rise to its level, or it makes me want to be a better photographer. And Xiaomi and Leica do exactly that. It's the one aspect I'll truly miss when I switch back to my Razr and Flip 6 as my night and weekend flip phones. When you consider how many of my complaints about the Mix Flip stem from the simple fact that it's not made for my market, you've got to come away impressed by how much Xiaomi got right with this first attempt. Especially if you compare it with Honor's first flip phone, which makes many more compromises, albeit at a substantially lower price point. Speaking of, I've seen the Mix Flip listed as low as $939 for import, while the official price for Europe is tipped to be somewhat higher at €1,300. I'd still recommend most folks stick with the established players. Motorola and Samsung each have a more mature product with vastly superior software, in my opinion. But at the very least, Xiaomi's strong start bodes well for the next generation of Mix Flip. And its mere presence in the segment to begin with is a reminder to those incumbents not to get too comfortable. And it's another positive sign that flip phones are here to stay. This video was produced following several weeks with a Mix Flip review sample provided by Xiaomi, but as always, the manufacturer provided no compensation in exchange for this coverage, and it had no editorial input into nor early preview of it. Subscribe to the Mr. Mobile on YouTube so you don't miss upcoming coverage on that Honor flip phone I teased toward the end there, and in the meantime, check out my reviews of the competition from Samsung and Motorola right here on Mr. Mobile. Until next time, from Michael Fisher, Captain Two Phones on Threads, thanks for watching. And stay mobile, my friends.